I'm Regional Strategy Advisor to the Assistant Secretary General and Director of the Regional Bureau for Africa. And my role is really to help with strategy development, visioning the future of development, seeing how that translates into programming, and supporting the oversight in implementation. We're at an important stage in the prospects of Africa and Africa's development. And we have seen that some of the models practiced in the past have failed us. And so UNDP Africa is really going through an exciting time where we're trying to think about how this can be done differently, not only to think, but to act it out. And therefore, my role is really at the heart of this thinking, this visioning, this strategy preparation, and most important of all, supporting the oversight to ensure that we start to see something of a different development footprint on the continent of Africa. This is an exciting tapestry in how we can do development differently. When you think about it, the Assistant Secretary General often talks about Africa as this place that has been viewed as a question mark, full of problems, full of challenges. But what if we looked at Africa for what it is? This place with huge endowments in minerals, in human capital. What if we looked at the continent as a place that is rich and capable of financing its own development? What are the pillars that can unleash that promise? When you think about natural resources, when you think about energy and the endowment across the continent, including in places like the Sahel, when you think about human capital, women and youth, you think about structural economic transformation and the role of trade. You think about climate and the possibility for Africa to have a different kind of development trajectory that is green and not brown. And you think about the possibility to create peaceful societies. This is what Africa's promise is truly about, that we have to start to invest in development from the perspective of unleashing the assets as opposed to being drowned by the problem. And so what it means for purposes of programming is that you touch on those levers that will transform the continent, unleash the promise. In a sense, you start to look at institutions, you start to look at people as agents of their own development and invest from the perspective of ensuring that they can go faster and that you can go to scale as opposed to managing a problem. And so if I were to summarize it, Africa's promise is really a practical application of what we see in UNDP Africa as the future of development. All of Africa's countries are endowed with those resources that have propelled the industrialization of countries outside of Africa. They have managed the creation of wealth outside of the continent of Africa. And what the African Continental Free Trade Area does is seek to reverse it by creating a tariff structure within the continent and a regulatory structure within the continent in which trade policy can support the acceleration of Africa's development. And so UNDP is entering this space very much as a development investment, looking at the possibility of advancing that promise we have in the One Africa market by ensuring that at the country level, where we really are and have our strongest muscle, we work with governments, we work with exporters, especially women and youth, to help in increasing the readiness and the capacity for production of those goods and services that are at the heart of the Made in Africa revolution. I'm passionate about this area because it has consisted of the entirety of my professional career as an international trade and investment lawyer. And so I've spent the last 2.5 years really trying to shape, conceptualize, and create this new area that we see as the vehicle of our pillar in Africa's promise on structural economic transformation. So we are working very much at the regional level in terms of creating the space for dialogue and for exchange between Africa's regional economic communities. That is very important because the One Africa market is really about accelerating the possibilities of trading on the continent. We also have this very unique partnership with the Secretariat of the African Continental Free Trade Area, which helps them with standing up the institutional readiness to support implementation. And most important, at the country level, we're orienting our country officers to think through how UNDP can have a step forward in working with exporters to strengthen readiness to produce made in Africa and to sell on the One Africa market. You see, there are immense opportunities because when you think about it, Africa has a market of 1.2 billion people that are projected to double not too far from now, by 2050 certainly. So when you think about that huge market and the reality that every day each of these people are consuming goods and services, the criticality is identifying, first of all, what the market is truly about. And we did a very interesting study at the end of last year together with the AFCFTA Secretariat, where we identified the value chains emerging in this One Africa market. And so what is the position of this African country, be it Senegal, be it Rwanda? How do you fit within these value chains? And then how do you start a targeted production process that is meeting the standards, that is at the right scale to ensure that you benefit from the market? So it's going to take targeted identification of niche sectors. It's going to take investment in productive capacities. It's going to take improving the regulatory environment, investing in trade facilitation, ensuring that women and youth are critical to the exports, and ensuring overall that the environment is structured around enabling the capacity, for example, of Rwanda's exporters to go ashore as opposed to remaining in the EAC market, for example, which we already have. So those who position to win by investing in productive capacities will do. And Rwanda is very well positioned for that when you think about it, because Rwanda has had an important investment attraction drive, which means more and more there is a production base growing in this country. Rwanda also has some very important assets when you think about how it has positioned in the age of innovation, in the age of technology as a hub in the sub-region, in the age of tourism, for example, and niche tourism. We always talk about those gorillas and how a whole tourism industry has been developed around them. But we also talk about conference tourism, which is why we're here this week with the AC for All Forum. And so all of these are exports when you think about it. The most critical point is to think about how the finances coming out of these exports, be they in goods and services, are then projected to spark the development revolution of Rwanda.